Was born in Kentucky, raised in Tennessee, and him and a militia arrived here in the Santa Cruz Mountains along about 1835. Back in Tennessee, he was also Davy Crockett's cousin, and he arrived before coming up here to the Santa Cruz Mountains. He registered with the Mexican government. He was a distiller back in Kentucky. In Tennessee, and when he got here to Alta, California in 1835, and the reason it's called Alta, California in 1835, it was part of Mexico. And he registered with the Mexican government as a distiller and came on up here to the Santa Cruz Mountains and built a still and a bar and commenced making and selling that Isaac Graham recipe of fine Tennessee sipping whiskey.
For me is probably to be able to share the history of the area and the Old West in general. It's something to be revered. A lot of the feelings and what the people did years ago are still alive and well, but it's not quite the same. But if you hang out with the cowboys, you'll find out what kind of people they really are. They work hard and they play harder, and they're a lot of fun to be around, and they'll give up anything they own to help you if you need that kind of help. And that's what the spirit of the Old West has always been and still is. Not quite as widespread as it used to be, but it's quite enjoyable. My name's Gary Taylor, and the name of the business is Old West Legacy.
Well, the redwoods here in the San Lorenzo Valley, like you can see behind me here, this was all clear cut around about 1910. And now it's all about 100 years old, and most of it all around here, the trees are about 100 to 110 feet tall. Some of it falls, and usually that's what I get a hold of and carve and make things out of, some of the fallen stuff that's already down. Some of the stuff I make, like this thing right in front of me here, this table, was fallen by a tree right behind me on my left side there. About 5 years ago, a big one came down. I decided to cut it up, and I started making things, and this is what I did today. Oh, when I first started the business, and it still is today, I started out doing a hiking camping store, which it still is part of it today. I carry camping supplies for some of the local stuff, but I've kind of turned it into some tourist stuff too, and also my redwood stuff, and firewood is my main now. What I do with the carving is like the bears. When I make stuff out of my chainsaws, 6 years ago I saw a redwood bear. I had somebody try to make one, and they couldn't do it. So I got a chainsaw and a piece of lumber, and I said, well, let me see if I can, and it all started from there. I found out that I had a knack for it, and that's what I've been doing ever since. Walk over here and I'll show you how I make one of my bears. This is one of my bears that I started earlier, and so what I'll do is show you how I trim it a little bit and make it a little bit more presentable. Bob Bales, and Bob Stop and Get It.
My name is Charles Fewer, and my business is Charles Barbershop in Scotts Valley, California. It's nice to go into a barbershop and know what to expect, and I'm trying to keep it familiar for a lot of people, and especially in a community like Scotts Valley. It's a very close-knit community. This is a neighborhood shop. You get to know the customers well, and you get to know a little bit about who they are and their stories, and that's nice, having a little neighborhood barbershop like this.
My name is Wendy Kramer Pugh, and the name of our company is Pure Valley Water. Actually, the history, I like that there's still older buildings. It's not so much, you know, everything's fast and new and knocking down things. I thought it was kind of interesting when they took the trees from Scotts Valley to Bonifani Gardens, and going to Bonifani Gardens and seeing that these trees were in my town. I thought that was so exceptionally outstanding. Santa's Village was another, yes, a very great place to go. Highly miss it, and I think our children today would love it. The railroad, I mean, hearing that train Saturdays and Sundays is just amazing. Santa Cruz the boardwalk being so close, and the beach. I mean, we're just kind of in the middle of this small little valley that stays sunny, and it's just a happy feeling.
And pretty soon word got around about how good his whiskey was. He had sailors coming from the wharf down here in Santa Cruz coming up here to the Santa Cruz Mountains and drinking Isaac Graham's whiskey. Had fellas from Africa and Asia, Indonesia. And them fellas come up here, and I don't have to tell y'all, when you get a bunch of fellers all drunked up like that, you know, drinking that whiskey, that some of them don't play well with others. And so it was a wild and woolly place up here. There was cutting and fighting and shooting and all kinds of carrying on up here in the Santa Cruz Mountains. Well, sir, one day I'm standing there in the bar, and a Mexican soldier comes in the bar, and he had been sent up by Lieutenant Colonel Gutierrez, who was the governor, and brought me down to Monterey. And I go in to see the governor, and he says, listen, Mr. Graham, he says, I can't be having all that cutting and fighting and shooting carrying on up there in the Santa Cruz Mountains. He says, I just can't have that. It's because you're making and selling that whiskey. And I said, well, sir, I says, you got no law up here. There's no army or no police force, no nothing. Just a wild and woolly place. I said, what do you expect me to do? I says, I just make this whiskey. What them fellers do after they drink it ain't none of my affair. He said, well, that's what I wanted to talk to you about, Mr. Graham. He says, I heard about them exploits you had back in Tennessee with Davy Crockett there, and you might be the fellow I'm looking for. He says, what I want to do is make you a captain in the Mexican Army. And that way you can ride herd on all them bad guys up there in the Santa Cruz Mountains. And I looked at the governor, and I said, well, that's all well and good. What's in it for me? He said, well, what would you like? And he said, well, sir, he says, what do you want? And I said, well, I got my own section of land up there in the Santa Cruz Mountains. It ain't good for much. I says, if you'll give me that section of land, I'll become captain in the Mexican Army and ride herd on the bad guys. He said, well, I can't do that, Mr. Graham, for two reasons. He goes, reason number one, he says, in order to own land in Mexico, you got to be a Mexican citizen. And number two, in order to own land in Mexico, you got to be a Catholic. And I heard about you boys from Tennessee. You're all Baptists.
Perry D. Ralston, Sr., and Ralston Rods and Tackle and Archery and Firearms. City of Scotts Valley, though, I would have to say is probably one of the safest cities I've ever been in. You know, the joke around this town is, at 2 o'clock in the morning, would you walk down the street? Well, yeah, it's Scotts Valley. I wouldn't worry a bit. A lot of cities really need to look at how they run a town. I mean, it ain't all perfect, by no means. I mean, yeah, they have problems, but everybody does. But they don't have the amount of problems that the other cities and other counties have, because they've learned that, hey, businesses is what actually supports your town. And then it's the people that live there also. They're not harsh. You work with them, they work with you. They keep it legal. They work. They're actually interested in helping you.
And I said, well, Governor, I said, he's going to make me a captain in the Mexican Army. I says, don't that qualify me for Mexican citizenship some kind of way? And he said, yeah, that'll probably work, Mr. Graham. What are you going to do about that Catholic Baptist thing? And I takes my hat off, you know, and I grins at him real big. And I says, Governor, you give me that section of land, I'll be anything you want me to be. So he did, and I did. So I come back up here to the Santa Cruz Mountains, and now I'm Captain Isaac Graham in the Mexican Army. And when them boys start drinking that Isaac Graham Tennessee sipping whiskey and acting up, I can arrest them and put them in jail. Things are pretty good, you know, but, you know, things are always could be better. We were sitting around a campfire one night, and we decided right then and there that we didn't like the way that the Mexican government was treating the citizens of Alta California. The head of the government's all the way down there in Mexico City, and the governor's all the way down there in Monterey, and he just wasn't treating the citizens of Alta California right. And we figured that if we could become part of the United States of America, we could get a better deal.
I've really enjoyed watching Scotts Valley grow to be the community that it is. It started off pretty small. Scotts Valley Drive was really run down and was a really bumpy kind of setup that they had for many years. And you know, in repaving Scotts Valley Drive, I think it really has just boomed ever since then with the addition of the high school. And it's really become a tight-knit community that has blossomed into something that we really pride ourselves in being a big part of it. My name is Eric Forbes. This is my wife, Catherine Forbes, and we're owners and operators of 4x4 and More in Scotts Valley.
My favorite things about growing up in the valley were swimming in the San Lorenzo River and picking blackberries, which are pretty ripe right about now, and making pies out of them. I went to Boulder Creek Elementary, to San Lorenzo Valley Junior High, and to the high school, and I liked going to school there and feeling the close-knit small community and having lots of friends, knowing pretty much everybody around us. It felt very safe and secure to grow up here, and it was just a very healthy environment for me. I absolutely love living in Scotts Valley now as well, and having our children grow up in this valley.
So since I knew the governor a little bit, we figured we'd start off with the governor down there in Monterey. So me and the fellas, we took off down there, you know, we had this cannon that we drug all the way from Tennessee with us, and got down there one morning. It was a pretty morning like today. We lined up in front of the governor's mansion there, and I hollered, "Hey, Governor, it's Isaac Graham, and we're here to talk about independence for Mexico, for Alta California. We want to become part of the United States of America." Well, so I stood out there and I hollered and I hollered and I hollered, and nobody paid me no mind. So finally, here comes this Mexican soldier out there. He comes up to me on horseback, and he says, "Mr. Graham," he says, "the governor's in there laughing, and he thinks independence for Mexico, for Alta California, is the silliest thing he ever heard of. He told me to tell you hillbillies and you boys just turn around and get back up there in them Santa Cruz Mountains where you come from." And he says, and he turned around and rode off. Well, that made me highly agitado. So what do you think we did? We fired that cannon, and that cannonball went through the air, put a hole in the roof of the governor's mansion, landed on the porch of the governor's mansion, kerplunk. Well, sir, we're looking through the spy glasses there, and the governor's coming out there, and he's looking at that hole in his roof there, and he's looking at that cannonball laying on the front porch. There's all kinds of Mexican soldiers scurrying around, running all over the place. Pretty soon, here comes this Mexican soldier. He's on a horse, and he's riding up, and he's got a white flag on his stick, and he's yelling, "Don't shoot, don't shoot, don't shoot!" Well, sir, soldier comes up to me, and he says, "Mr. Graham," he says, "the governor says, there's no need firing any more cannonballs at the governor's mansion. If you boys are that serious, you're going to fire a cannonball at us to talk about independence for Alta California from Mexico. You boys are that serious." The governor says, "Well, you guys come on in here and talk about it like gentlemen."
Maria Moreno, Maya Mexican restaurant. Well, I'm working here for 9 years, and I see the families, it's like a big family. The town is like everybody take care of each other. It's big groups of people, they very nice each other. A lot of the Scotts Valley City, they come here, and the police, a lot of police come in 2-3 times a week to join the lunch. We have a really popular margarita. It's we call Mayarita, like Maya. It's a double shot, come with orange liquor and brandy. So that mix is like tastes good. Well, I have a big party, and they drink margaritas. Everybody was laughing so hard, like I just want to sit and enjoy with them.
Oh, by the way, Mr. Graham, the governor wants to know if you brought any of that Isaac Graham recipe whiskey with you. Well, it takes my whiskey with me everywhere I go. Well, sir, we go in the governor's mansion there, and we're drinking Isaac Graham, Tennessee, sipping whiskey, and we're talking about independence for Alta California. Everything's going to be great. Become part of the United States of America. Eating cake and burrito is almost like a party. Right in the middle of everything, the governor said, "Hey, hold the wedding, hold the wedding." He says, I got something I think you boys will like. And I said, what that, Governor? He says, well, I just got a fresh shipment of tequila up from Mexico City. And I says, tequila? He said, no, Mr. Graham, we call it tequila, and it's kind of like that whiskey you make, except this comes from a cactus instead of corn. And in that cactus there lives a worm. And when you drink that tequila, you drink that whole bottle of tequila down, and that worm's in the bottom of the bottle, and you drink that bottle of tequila all down, eat the worm in the bottom of the bottle. That's the best part. And we go, ew. But we're brave fellas, we can do that. So now we got tequila in one hand and Isaac Graham sipping whiskey in the other hand. We're talking about independence out to California, how everything's going to be great. We become part of the United States of America. The next thing you know, us old boys from Tennessee, and we're all dead drunk, laying there on the floor. And you know where we were when we sobered up? We were on a boat in the Monterey Harbor, tied hand and foot. And they took us down to Mexico City.
My name is Lindy Martin, and the name of our business is Chocolate Visions.
I'm Lloyd Martin, and together we make chocolates. We like Scotts Valley.
All the people are so
City Hall
friendly
is
and
very,
nice.
they've always been very helpful to us for getting our business established.
On that boat, put us in jail, Mexico City. We're sitting there in that boat in Mexico City, going gloom, despair, woe is me. I want to get out of here. I want to get back to the Santa Cruz Mountains. I was running out of whiskey. One day a little fella comes in to my cell there and introduced himself as a reporter from the San Francisco Call-Bulletin newspaper. And he said he had heard about Isaac Graham's famous fight for independence for out to California. He thought it'd make a good story. So I told him the story, and he pretty much the way I'm telling it to you folks here today. And he went back up to San Francisco and wrote it up and put it in the newspaper, and pretty soon as the newspapers all over the world, he even got into the London Times in London, England. And I forgot to tell you back at the beginning of the story that we had a couple old boys from England with us in the group. Well, the King of England, reading about Isaac Graham's fight for independence there, and everybody's name and where they were from was in the London Times there, and she gets down the list there, and she said, wait a minute, I can't be having this. There's a couple of British subjects in jail with Isaac Graham in Mexico City. They don't belong in jail in Mexico City. They belong to me, the Queen of England. Can't be having that. So the Queen of England got a hold of the Mexican government and said, you let them fellers out from England out, or we're going to send some British soldiers over there and get them out of jail. And the Mexican government decided they didn't want to have a fight with England over a bunch of hillbillies. So they let them Englishmen out, and they let me and the rest of the fellas out if we promised never to fire a cannonball at the governor's mansion again. So we did. And I came back up here to the Santa Cruz Mountains, and I'm still Captain Isaac Graham in the Mexican Army, and I'm still making and selling my whiskey.
Danya Leona, and the name of the business is Scotts Valley Gym. I have so many stories that come in the gym with the elderly people or older people, 70, 80-year-old people that are in here still working out. And they are above and beyond their friends who are dying and have injuries and are, pretty incapacitated. And they attribute it to working out. They said, you know what, and I believe it too. I just think you need to have, and you don't have to lift heavy weights. You just have to, work the parts. Otherwise, they atrophy. Scotts Valley, Ben Lomond, Boulder Creek, Felton. I have some people that come from Aptos. They really love us here.
And then in 1849, the gold rush happened. And during that gold rush, there's people coming into San Francisco from all over the world. And there wasn't enough places for people to live, so I got this idea. I got that land for the Mexican government with all them redwood trees on it. Well, I formed me a logging company, and I cut down them trees, turned them into lumber, built me a lumber mill. And the road coming in here today is called Graham Hill Road. I built that road from here to the forest all the way to the wharf in Santa Cruz so I could get my lumber from the forest here to the wharf in Santa Cruz to be put on boats and barges and shipped up to San Francisco during the gold rush. And I got rich during the gold rush without ever looking for gold.
My name is Lynn, and I have All-American hot dogs. I've lived here for 17 years. Well, this is an area that people come to vacation from all over the world. And so we are just really fortunate to live here and to work here. The beautiful redwood trees, the gorgeous, best hot dogs, gorgeous weather. You're just at peace. It's all the time. I mean, it's just like it's like being on vacation every day. Well, I just love the fact that that this area is when they had the San Francisco earthquake and big fire, and the city was burnt down almost to the ground. They came to this area to gather the trees to rebuild the city. And so if you look at pictures of this area, you know, 100 or so years ago, it doesn't even look the same. I mean, you don't even see any trees up here because they pretty much clear cut. So I think that that makes us pretty special, that this area really did, the lumber from this area did rebuild San Francisco after that big earthquake.
My name's Jack Ladd. It's Ladd's Auto Body and Towing. Well, being in business in the Santa Rosa Valley has been a great opportunity for me. I grew up here. I went to high school here in Felton. All my friends and were getting stuck and having vehicle problems, and so I decided to get in the towing company business to help out my friends. And these mountains produce a lot of vehicle incidences. So because of the terrain up here, the hills, I saw a need for a tow company since people are always having car problems and getting stuck. There's been a lot of changes. Things I like now, well, you know, it's been a great place. I guess the community events, the parades and the fairs they have around here is a good thing for the families. It kind of reminds me of back when I grew up here. Of course, back then we had Santa's Village and we had several other attractions, Lost World, and several other things to keep us kids busy. Those things have gone away. So I like the idea that they still have community events here, fairs, they parades, and they have things like that for the families.
Scotts Valley is a neat little town. My mother was raised here, went to the elementary school here. So we've been around for a long time. My grandfolks had a ranch off of Granite Creek, Apple Ranch. So we've been around this area for really a long time. Well, it had a lot of neat things here through the years. You know, we used to have all the apple stands for apple juice, you know, cider stands. And, you know, we had Santa's Village. We've had a lot of things. We used to have the trees. We had all the fancy trees down where Vestigia is right now. But all this stuff's it's been really interesting. But it's a nice town. We've had good people operating it, and I have no complaints.
My name's Gordon Rudy, and this is Rudy's Budget Truck Rental in Felton. We've been in business here since about 1979. Well, the building was built in 1964 as a Richfield gas station. And Kelly Wood and his family, the Wood family, owned it. And anyway, that was built and it was run as a gas station, becoming Arco, which is what Richfield used to be. And then Ernie Devonshire of Ernie's Auto Center, they had a lease on this property, and then eventually we took over. We bought the gas station from Ernie in, I think, about 1979. And my father was retiring from his long career, of what he was doing in Silicon Valley, and started here as a retirement business. And he worked in the business a couple of years with me and my brother. And my brother was a student working here, and I was kind of running the business and did a bunch of different things. We got involved in racing, motorcycles and things like that. So, but we've done a lot of stuff. We've had car repair here, we've had tire service. We had a Volkswagen repair shop here for a couple of years. We had a motorcycle business here, motorcycle repair business, and we bought and sold. and we had RV rentals. You know, I think the best part about living in the San Lorenzo Valley is you have the small town feeling and the small town kind of lifestyle, but not being so removed that you're like in an Appalachian situation, you know, or a very extreme Northern California situation. You know, we're only about an hour and 5 minutes to an hour and 10 minutes from San Francisco. We're, you know, 10 to 20 minutes to Santa Cruz. We're close to culture. We're close to lots and lots of things, but the San Lorenzo Valley has always been its own place. You know, it's a, you know, we came from a lumber and timber industry into a tourism industry into being a bedroom community to the Silicon Valley and other places. So we've got unique lifestyle here, diverse population, diverse economic situations. You know, everything is everything's just kind of a big melting pot, and that's part of what makes it fun to be a real estate agent in this area too. Because you know, I grew up with people here. It's fun to see people I know. It's a very comforting feeling, you know. And after having businesses in towns where I didn't know people, I was an anonymous person. It was really kind of fun to come back to the corner where I started with my dad and my brother way back when.
My name's Amanda McMullen. This is my mom,
Trina McMullen.
We're the owners of Postal Annex here in Scotts Valley. I love Scotts Valley.
So it's, again, it all goes back to being small. It feels, you know, that small community feel, that friendliness, that extra connection that you don't get in a larger
I go to my
environment.
little coffee shop across the way. They know my drink. I go into the market and I have everyone in a different aisle asking, how's your mom doing? How's your son? How's business going? Go down the street and the post office master even knows us. I mean, it's a nice feeling here. I like it.
I've watched Scotts Valley grow, well, since the 60s when Santa's Village used to be here. Scotts Valley was just kind of a pass-through into Santa Cruz. It's grown, but it hasn't grown to what I would consider something to be so over-commercialized. They still try to keep things, again, at that smaller community, and it makes it nice. It still feels like a little bit of a rustic town with a lot of the modern conveniences, if you will.
Indicates custom tattoos.
We do a lot of events for a lot of different charities. Anything for the community that we can assist in and whatnot, we will. Speak up when we're needed, absolutely. But we like to definitely take part in different charities to support the community. We're very family orientated because we have our own children. I think anything over and above, anything to do with children and directing some of these younger kids into making the right decisions in life. And
expressing in an artistic way.
Exactly. Just exploring things and their options, but we're really family orientated. We are about children, organizations, and we just want to be noted for doing the good.
Thank you.